We are living through an interesting moment in history, a clear rupture in the grand narratives that once claimed to give the world a definite direction. The collapse of these supposedly certain paths has left many disoriented, unable to grasp the chain of events that carry them into the sea of insecurity. Without understanding what is unfolding, many have chosen to dissolve themselves within modern mass society, accepting it willingly, as a gesture of existential cowardice. And that is why, in today's discussion, I once again sat at the table and lay out the cards before us, so we can see what options remain and decide how to position ourselves within this modern entanglement. Many enthusiasts and defenders of a particular narratives have tried to conceal the different phases of this rupture, hoping to prevent the young and the still lucid from navigating upstream through this great reintegrative current. What I mean is that progressivism and liberalism have struggled to remain ideologically alive because their increasingly tedious frameworks for interpreting existence can no longer contain the will of the hungrier, the more rebellious individuals emerging in recent society. We can divide the relevant portion of society into two broad camps. On one side stand those who will fully internalize the last man, those who accept servitude, universalist utilitarianism, and the dissolution of personality into the diluted mass of low existence. They will embrace the most restrictive features of modern life, and they will do so willingly. On the other side stand those who step into this great reintegrative current, a force that acts like a great father, advising, criticizing, correcting, and offering possibility to his children. It carries an inheritance ready for the strongest to compete in their full measure. This signals the return of true struggle, each against each, guided by experience, grand narratives, Machiavellian clarity, pragmatism, realism, stylization, and the transcendence long sought by modern alchemists. Behold it, the great reintegrative current, pulling upward those who dare to extend a hand at the edge of the precipice. Just as great monopolies have learned to manufacture their own demand, those who climb the upper crust have begun to create and offer their own vision, positioning it against all who are not aligned with them. And in doing so, they shape a new mode of organizing existence, one that, thanks to the internet, no longer depends on geographic proximity or formal institutional structure. Different ways of living generate different constellations of people, connected through shared elements and resonant principles. And although this form of hierarchy is not functionalist in nature, it brings together individuals from distant corners of the world who are pushing their experience to its highest intensity. It stands as a counterforce to total servitude, to those who surrender to monopoly, to false decentralization, to the clever foxes who decentralize only to monopolize again, who give it today in order to take tomorrow, much like the tricks we once used on younger siblings. Yet, this emerging field may allow an initial dissolution of monopolized structures. These spontaneous formations represent the first fracture in enforced compatibility, a radical release from the obligation to belong to any cause other than one's own. They allow movement across groups, the harvesting of what each way of life offers, whether among alchemists, magi, witchers, or hunters. More and more we will witness archetypes once erased returning to the stage. More and more elements once removed from history will be reintegrated through a new front, an aesthetic, philosophical, musical, and poetic convergence, alongside every other force capable of strengthening individuals and guilds, experiences and attitudes in their confrontation with the Titans. Even within accelerationism, A form of segregation has already taken place. There is a clear distinction between the means and objectives of those trapped in the most enslaved sectors of monopoly structures and those who genuinely accelerate processes. From my perspective, this is not a purely decentralized phenomenon, nor merely the result of spontaneous markets. Accelerationism has operated with backing from its respective nation-states, a visible alignment between government and monopoly, while only a fragment of exchanges remains decentralized and anonymous. Because of this, we cannot assume a perfectly unified massification, nor sustain the old notion of a universal endpoint imposed identically on everyone. That pessimistic vision where every existence flattens into the same compressed horizon no longer holds. In reality, many who live under impersonal monopolies and more limited modes of life often choose and accept that condition. It becomes a refuge from the burden of excellence in choice. They flee from the act of freedom itself, from becoming a collector of existence or a hunter. Both terms capture this singular type of man, someone who appears almost immune to restrictive life forms, the one who gathers elements and unites them within a new hierarchical field, can be described as either collector or hunter. Open quote. At bottom, someone more intelligent is someone who has deepened, on one side, the integration between concrete life and abstraction, strengthening personal unity of consciousness in contrast to others, elevating the self through originality, and on the other side, someone who has also reconciled the tension between multiple distinct perspectives, and for that very reason can look at things from above, hovering over the surface where others remain. This is a quote from Tiago Perdigão, one of the authors I deeply appreciate. The idea that a capable individual can gather and unify elements creatively, not merely at a symbolic level, but as lived realization. The artist does not only produce works, he inhabits them. He can be compared or rivaled by others of similar stature, each original and each distinct. Collectors live in this elevated stance. They see from above precisely because they can unite disparate elements and bring them into full realization. Often this unfolds alongside their works, their worldviews, the opening of new fronts in concrete reality. This kind of hunter rarely exists in perfect harmony with other hierarchical fields. There may be mutual recognition between life forms, yet visions collide when the question becomes which means should prevail at a given moment. I suspect such conflicts will intensify after the reintegrative movement matures. Anyone gathering new elements may attempt to surpass rival forms as their influence expands. There will not be a strict separation between ideas and concrete life. Everything suggests that those established within a hierarchical field will eventually seek expansion through methods difficult to predict with precision. What I can affirm is this: it is more desirable and more interesting to stand within one of these fields, not as a follower, but as someone who imposes his own mean and elements, strengthening a vision that reinforces the armor of his collector hero. Modernity requires a method forged against itself. That method evaluates everything in terms of experience, then classifies higher experience as that which gathers the highest elements and arranges them properly to create elevation. This implies that the possible paths beyond modernity, exaggerated pessimism, unjustified melancholy, tragic idealism, can be countered not by denial, but by appropriation and mastery. One arms oneself with these forces instead of surrendering to them. That is the method against contemporary excess, against its vices and rigid beliefs. This mirrors the painter's task, Selecting elements for a canvas, painting itself attempts to fix an experience. The artist's personality seeks to illustrate epic force, heroic stature. Taste, in that sense, becomes anti-tragic, anti-deterministic, anti-dogmatic. In practice, I am doing precisely this, constructing in your imagination the figure of the collector, the painter, who selects elements, who attempts to fix them into lived realization, into narrative, into myth. That act enables the reintegration of an anti-deterministic, anti-dogmatic hero, one who moves beyond scientific and melancholic habits that no longer offers threatening force in our present landscape. This is one possible outcome of practicing experiential collection. Possession rooted in love for one's own lived intensity. Experience functions as body and mind together, encased in the armor of these elemental properties. It does not begin rich in itself, it gains richness through armor. It remains delimited within a hierarchical field, a high plateau where everything is ordered by aesthetic criteria that discard what is lower. Let us not rush to judge everything through the lens of personal failure. What appears to carry a perfect and scientific purpose often proves useless or deceptive once relocated into a different hierarchy. The very emergence of hierarchical fields, new heroes, and new artists already precedes the collapse of any supposedly perfect or fully scientific endpoint for the world. This model does not culminate in universal purpose, it dissolves it. In its place, it becomes evident that perfection and imperfection function merely as value judgments contingent on the hierarchical field in question and on the type of hero, artist, alchemist, ideologist, or hermit operating within it. Many modern alchemists have lost interest in gold and now attempt to transmute ideologies and personal fetishes into ends imposed upon everyone. Such alchemists will inevitably enter the contest among hierarchical fields, seeing their own methods elevated alongside those of all others. An intensification of struggle at these levels, each against each, seems nearly unavoidable. This is perhaps the closest I come to tragedy in today's analysis. I hope you enjoyed this reflection. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Until next time.